next one for me.
Next one, yeah, man. Next.
All right. So the next one for me is one that I've liked for a while. I'm stating my bias here because I was involved in the IPO.
Oh,
Which which at
interesting.
that point was the largest IPO in modern
Isn't it
history.
still?
Raised. I need to run the math on that. It's probably, yeah, probably. Um, but also I was also involved in the structuring behind the scenes when I was at a previous organization, and that's TransJamaica. Anybody that has spoken to me over the past many years knows what I've thought about TransJamaica, even when it was languishing at 150. You remember that, Jeremy? And it seems like a whole
Oh,
movie.
I remember because we did a Stocks to Watch 2021.
Mm.
And that was the first time I mentioned Trans Jamaica, where it was about 120.
I want,
It
yeah.
was languishing for a while because it felt like it didn't do anything for like a year. So
Oh, you know, so Jeremy, as you know, I like the data on the charts and things like that. And there are
yeah,
a few ideas that I have. One of them is I have a thesis. The guys in the chat can tell me what they think. Jeremy, and tell me what they think. The volume movements no, you can go back on the price chart.
go back. Okay.
Yeah, the price chart. The volume movements can predict in some way, along with your read of the sentiment where a price will go. Does anybody realize what happened in that inflection point when they moved from about 140 and started to run over the next couple months? What is that one thing that you're seeing? I want you to say it in the comments. Jeremy, I see you pointing at it. There was a Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, man, go ahead because I was gonna say I'm trying to remember what would have happened at that point.
Well, I'm not even talking about an event here. I'm talking about just pure price volume, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
pure technical analysis without the events. There was a sharp increase in volume there, and if we could pull back this graph historically and go further back, you'll realize that the the volume that ran it from 140, that region, up to, I would say, probably about 270, 275 until it came back down to 250. That volume has been more than it was historically, over that period of time. Oh, I see you have it here,
Yeah, man.
right? So you realize that there's been some form of notable shift, and you guys can see it now. So I kind of giving you guys an insight as to how I look at these graphs. Of course, I usually put out, oh, I see this graph has tools for technical analysis. So if you look further back to even April 2021, closer to when you would have done that last Stocks to Watch episode, Jermaine, you'll realize that the volume fell off in 2021 and was very low almost all of 2021 when it was stuck between that range bound
Oh,
price.
yeah.
You realize in April 2022, as the price picked up, the volume picked up, whichever one came first. But
Yeah.
you realize every time the price moves, so shift over back to the right now, April 2023. By
That's
the way,
interesting though. I never noticed that.
yes, and by the way, are you guys realizing that the volume spike closer or in and around the April period, right? If you realize in April 2023, the last inflection was April 2022. April 2023, when it settled back, the price then shot up, and the volume increased. I'm willing to bet that the average daily volume also
Yeah, but you
increased
can see it. You
over
can
that
see
period.
it.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
that's kind of how how I tell people that I like to get to the party early, set up the box, help the waitress them spread the table, have the opportunity to choose wherever I sit, and get into the party early means that you're looking at this, and even from April 2022, when the volume started to pick up, you say, wait, but what's happening here? I think also what happened is I'm going to try to find the date here when they announced that they were doing the acquisition of JIO, which is the operating company. Um, that would have had an impact on the price as well. Give me a sec. I'm going to try to find when that was actually announced. It was late 2022,
All right, no problem.
coming into 2023.
I've not much to say that I haven't already said about Trans Jamaica.
Don't want people to say Jeremy, fully in love with TGV. No.
I think that's well documented. I think just for the simple reason we did an interview with Ivan, I think November of last year. Very great interview. Check that out. They have some great plans for this year. One of the things we spoke about was the dividend, right? So they're potentially looking at doing two dividend payouts instead of one.
Mm.
They're looking to implement some technology which will help with how transactions are processed. There's a new development that they are working on getting an agreement to service. We know about the Williamsfield option as well that is waiting to be announced. Like there are just so many things that are there. They're not on my watch list, but I mean, as you made that analogy, I've been set up a long time. So I'm ready for anything that may or may not happen. And I agree here, right? Sean is saying it's a no-brainer type of stock, recession proof and dividend yield and all of that stuff. I mean, it's just it's a very simple understanding, right? It's infrastructure. It's infrastructure that is critical, and I think that with the way that they're seeking to be more efficient, their opportunities to manage their revenues by essentially being able to continue to adapt the rate based on exchange rates. Like there's so many things that are just favorable for it, and of course the prospectus state that the dividend yield should be increasing. Of course,
Yeah, I mean, it was
your
a
personal
well structured
based on
deal.
price. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It was structured to actually produce based on the current highways alone, so not
Yeah.
including the upcoming concession with
Yeah.
with, with Mandeville. But how it was structured is that as the principal of the debt is paid down, and over time as more cash is freed up, and GIO wasn't acquiring, that wasn't even in the base case projections there, is that the dividend yield would increase, I would say, relatively exponentially over time, on a standalone basis. We know I call it the belt initiative. I don't know if the government has a name for it, but their idea is to wrap the country with a main art with a main thoroughfare, and then have arteries coming off that main road. Um, so I see them also doing Montego Bay, and possibly going into other types of infrastructure projects as well. So that's one that's a no-brainer for me. I would say my only consideration here, um, Jermaine, is of course we want to buy things at the best price. So
Yes. Yes.
when this moves from 140 at 150 at to $3, you have to ask yourself, is this the best price? So I went on Mayberry's website and I pulled the relative valuation metrics. So I pulled the PB, the PE. They have a dividend yield of 13.8%, which is wow. I didn't even calculate it before. That's very good. But from a price to book and a price to earnings measure, it may tell you that the stock is overvalued. I've said this before at listing, is that Trans Jamaica one, it has no relative valuation. You can't compare it with China Harbor, for example, because China Harbor is not listed. Operator the North South Highway is not listed, right? So you have to kind of use whichever, whether you're a company or a person, use the yield that you can get from that stock. So whether it's the dividend yield plus whatever cap gains you can get from that, and estimate as to what the benefit will be.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think somebody was asking if you think their debt is a concern.
No, the well, for context, the highways are built with some form of debt. So that is, I would say, a part of the model of the agreement and how the company is run. The most important thing is their servicing of the debt, and they service the debt through tolls, right? So when you're doing your assessment of whether the debt is good or bad or whatever, you have to look on their ability to service those interest payments. I believe they even have reserved the cash on their balance sheet, to account for certain requirements from the debt.
Okay. All right.